All right, we are live. And on today's episode, I interview a mother, a mentor, a yoga teacher, sound healer, curiosity junkie, shit disturber, and author. Her debut memoir, Love Life, a story of self exploration through sacred teachings, solitude, and sex, is available on Amazon now. Welcome to the Winner Circle, Niki Trosky.
Thanks for having me, Derek.
Yeah, absolutely. We ran into each other a while back after a yoga class, and I was just saying, um, I really admire and love the hero's journey you're on and all the wonderful stuff you're doing. I told you a bit about my podcast and its goal to uplift, inspire, and empower others by by sharing our story, and said I had to have you on, and now you're
Hmm.
on. And
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for your contribution to the collective. This is a great platform.
Thank you, thank you. So these conversations tend to be very uplifting and inspiring, and they focus more on my guest worlds rather than the external world, where there's always some sort of drama or problem going on, and it's inevitable. It's what are we going to focus on? And for this next hour, let's focus on what's going great in your personal world, as well as the highs and the lows as well, and how you've overcome them. But to set us up on a good vibe, this first question will do so. What do you love about your personal world right now, Nikki?
Hmm. It's funny. I just had lunch today with a gentleman. His name is Giorgio Brioni, and he is the son of the founder of where I live in Mexico, which is called Careyes. And he was just really curious. He's like, "You've been here for 7 years, like what do you, what's your experience been like? How can you sum it up?" And the conversation was really about me understanding that even though my upbringing was from a very Winnipeg based environment, so that means extremely cold temperatures and really challenging experiences just doing simple tasks throughout the day. And I think growing up in Winnipeg, one thing that we underestimate sometimes is how it gives us this amazing girth to our being. We're not fragile people. We don't get bowled over easily. And I dare say, we get to have this extreme view where we go months and months and months and months out of the year seeing white, not being connected to nature, hiding from nature, going into the, realms where there's very little sunlight throughout the day. So to answer your question, what do I enjoy about my day to day and what do I love about my life right now? It's really just the environment that I've chosen to live in. I live in a place where I look out my front window and in the middle of February, I've got butterflies and hummingbirds. I'm half a song to the beach where I do my morning rituals. Every day I wake up with a very consistent ritual where I'm hula hooping on the beach and I'm hanging out with this super handsome blue heron and these flocks of pelicans and this fisherman named Lino. I mean, I can go an entire morning and I can see one human and 800 birds, right? So I'm really in a very remote part of the world, but the beauty of this place is just not lost on me. Every day I wake up, 7 years in, I still wake up and I have an entire beach to myself. And I think, wow, how did I pull this off? My red carpet is a gold sandy beach.
And I'm sure people listening are asking, how did you pull that off? So let's get into that, and we'll just go back 7 years, or maybe we go back further on when that first calling to leave Winnipeg, where you're from, where I'm from. Um, so yeah, how did you end up from a prairie town into this paradise in Mexico?
Well, so I did a lot of, I graduated from university in my 20s and I did a lot of traveling. So traveling as a single woman throughout most of my late 20s and mid 30s, I got a thirst for adventure. And then I fell in love, became a mother, started working as, I designed a school for at-risk youth in Winnipeg and I was working out of that job for about 10 years. And I was married and I had a mortgage, but I kept feeling this inner stirring, this inner calling of like, there's more. there's there's you're the perfect person for this job that I had created, but you're also, part of you is going to waste. You have a lot more to offer, because I was working with really challenging at-risk youth who, they didn't want to be there. I mean, they loved me and I loved them, but they were stuck in a system that wasn't serving them. They were apprehended from their homes in the Northern Reserves. They were taken by Child and Family Services, and the school systems didn't want them. And so I was hired to create a school for these children, and I loved them, and I feel like what I provided for them was like a safe space. But there was this other part of me that had decades of travel and curiosity and wisdom collecting from working with different masters around the world. And I thought, I have so much that I want to share. And yet the students that I was working with, they actually didn't even want my help. There was no willingness, right? And what they really truly taught me, that without a willingness, there is no way that you can help someone. Without a willingness, evolution doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I was most inspired to eject out of that space and begin working. My first thing in Mexico was something called As You Wish retreats, because I thought, well, if people show up because they want to be here, if they wish to be here, now their willingness is present, and now we can start making some real transformations for people. So it was a big leap of faith. I quit my job on January 1st. I think it was 2017, or maybe it was 2018. I can't remember. Just to be dramatic, it was like January 1st, I'm quitting. And the courage that it took to get to that point was really intense, because taking a leap of faith as a single woman is one thing, but taking a leap of faith with as a wife with a child and a mortgage is a completely different beast. I mean, it's like, it takes a lot. I mean, it took me, to be honest, it took me 5 years. I mean, it was a niggling voice that kept getting louder and louder and louder, until finally it was so uncomfortable in my being, I had no choice but to listen to my intuition, right? So the whispers eventually became louder. So long story short, I quit my job and I decided that I was going to try and find my dream life in Mexico. I'd already started hosting the As You Wish retreats and thought, well, that would be a great place to land with my family to see if we can actually find a way to live here full time. But the trick with that is that where I was hosting, it was a beautiful luxury resort, but kids weren't really welcome. My son was welcome, but there was no other kids. So I set off on a solo adventure to kind of see, plant seeds along the coastline. I was invited to Careyes because the family where I was hosting had land here in Careyes. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go and check this place out. I've been invited here several times. Now's the time to say yes. And when I came here for the very first time to Careyes, I mean, I had three questions. I showed up at this incredible party, and it was these huge bonfires burning on the beach, and this beautiful Jurassic rock that was lit up, and an open bar, and DJs, and slick seating. And I remember walking up, and I had three questions. My first question was, who the fuck throws down like this on a Tuesday? My second question was, who lives here? And my third question was, can I live here? Like, I just fell in love immediately. And at that party, I met a certain gentleman who was DJing, and I had the best dance that I've ever had in my entire life. And I love, love, love to dance. It's like the thing that brings me the most joy. So I meet this person, we have a 15-minute encounter, and then fast forward, a month and a half later, I'm back in Winnipeg. My visa's run out. I didn't land my dream job, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm back to where I started. I still have a mortgage, I still have a kid, I still have a husband, but now I have no job. And so it was like that moment, that pinnacle moment on my path where it was very clear. And I thought, oh, well, you either backpedal the shit out of this or you double down. And I thought, okay, well, let's double down. What does this look like, Niki? And I said, well, when was the last time you were in the pocket? When was the last time you were super blissful, super connected, super inspired, super in love with your life? Where was the highest frequency that you can journey back to in the Rolodex of experiences that you've had? And it was quickly shown to me. I was like, oh, it was when I was on that beach dancing to that DJ set. I think that DJ has a festival in November. I wonder if he needs any dancers for his festival. That was my line of thought. That was my line of questioning. It was that one thread of joy of like, at 44 years old, I want to be a dancer. If I'm being really honest with myself, like if no one's looking and I get to choose anything I want, I want to be a dancer. And I allowed myself to have that bravery, that ridiculousness. There's nothing rational. I have no dance training. I've never been trained professionally to dance. I just love it. So I allowed the irrational self to step in. I allowed that little thread of joy to unravel. And I tracked down the DJ's number and I said, listen, I don't even know if you're going to remember me. I was dancing to your DJ set back in May. I think you have a festival in November. Do you need any dancers for your festival? And with that one text message, my whole life changed because he said, oh, well, in fact, I do remember you and I have something that I'd like to talk to you about. And so from there, we ended up, collaborating on this experience that was pretty powerful. We created, I think, the largest magic circle in modern history for a festival called Ondalinda. Our experience was called Akasha. And after, having the conversation, I downloaded everything that he had for his vision into a very clear document with photographs and choreography and all the things. And I sent it to him and he loved it so much. He said, I've been in this industry for 40 years and I've never met anyone that's grasped my idea as quickly as you. Now you're in trouble. How soon can you get back to Mexico? And I was like, well, it's complicated. I have a 5-year-old son. And he said, well, perfect. I have a 6-year-old boy. We'll get them a tutor. They'll ride horses. I was like, I also have an artist husband. It's great. Send me his portfolio. So from that thread of joy and from having that like insane courage to do the thing that made no sense at all, it teleported me and my entire family to Careyes to create this experience. And 7 years later, I'm still here.
Wow, wow, wow. One thing that came to mind is fear. Where where was fear in this, and what have you learned about fear on your journey?
Well, I think fear is always present in some way because there's a really uncomfortable dance that happens when you're living your life on the edge. So, what I mean by the edge is, and this is something that my mentor, the DJ, really passed on to me. He gave me several keys to creation, but one of them is truly when you get to the leading edge of your own existence, and by that edge, I mean, you don't know what's in front of you. You have no idea what's in front of you. And now it's anything, right? If you're living in this comfort zone and you think you've got it all figured out, you're kind of compressing yourself into limited boxes of what you think is possible. So you got to get the balls or the courage to get to that leading edge so there is nothing in front of you. And that's the field of anythingness. That's the field of creation. So when you start drawing from that field, yes, fear, it's present. I'm talking like the kind of fear where you think it was like when I made the first move to get my son. There's a whole other storyline of how I ended up moving here from the festival, but part of it was I wanted to put my son into a good school. And I remember driving him to school for the first time, and I'd never been in the school. And I was thinking, oh my God, did I just got my kid? Like, what? I don't know what I'm doing. And the fear is like visceral and it's panicky and it's, there's doubt there. But then all of a sudden, it's the most amazing experience for everyone involved, and the ugly cry comes. It's like, oh my God, we're gonna be okay, we're gonna be it's like, so yes, fear is present, but it's really important to distinguish the difference between fear and danger. I was never putting anyone in danger by wanting to be a dancer. I was never putting my son in danger by putting him in a school in the middle of a 26,000 acre nature reserve. There is no danger in any of my choices. So when we're clear that we're not in danger and we're only up against fear, fucking go for it. Push through that. Explore it. Don't let it freeze you. Expand into it and watch what unfolds. Risk taking is rewarded.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What if
Excuse my language.
what if someone sees that danger is, yeah, like you'll lose your mortgage, you'll lose, uh, like your financial security, like those were real risks, but I don't think those are dangerous. Those just
No.
present other opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, there was nothing dangerous there. Like no one's health was being threatened. No
Yeah,
one's safety was being threatened. So I think that's part of it. The truth is that if you're really truly wanting to chase your dreams, the last thing you consult is your rational mind, because the rational mind will come up with a large list of things to tell you not to do it.
yeah.
So there needs to be the curious nature, the curious nature. It's like, but what if I just, like, if I push this door or this button or look under this, like, what else is out there? So the limiting belief structures that we come up to in the framework of our own human experience. So if you're talking about just your mind and your thoughts, when you come up to the I can't, or that's impossible, or I couldn't do that, that's not me, question that. Question it. It's so important to question your own limiting belief systems. Whose voice is that? Is that your voice? Is that a programmed voice from school or society? Is that a parent? Is that an ex-boyfriend, girlfriend? Like, whose voice is telling you that you can't? And once you start unraveling all of the limiting belief systems that exist within the framework of your heart and your mind and your human experience, then you're going to start to open some real opportunities for expansion and evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you mentioned courage. It takes courage. Where
Oh,
did this courage come from, and where does faith play into that?
where does courage come from? Where does faith play into it?
Yeah.
Someone said a good line the other day. I wonder if I can remember it. It was like, first you have faith and then you believe, right? So it's like, I think from my decades of traveling as a single woman, I had enough experience to know that I always land on my feet. And I put myself, to be honest, I did things that weren't safe when I traveled alone as a woman. I mean, I was constantly hitchhiking and just, living a real life choose your own adventure series. So I had a lot of experience knowing that if I really put myself out there, I'll always land on my feet. And so I think there was that I had to create the courage and the cocktail of faith to take this leap with my whole family. Um, and I think it's also the combination of courage, faith, and curiosity that will take us the farthest. I always say curiosity will take you farther than any other mindset because we have to question even our faith. We have to question our belief systems. We have to question our faith. We have to question our courage. What am I afraid of
Hmm.
losing? What's
Hmm.
really holding me back? Why do I think I can't do it? What happens if I go? And sometimes I'll break things down in chunks. So, for example, the story that I just shared with you is how I landed in Careyes, but it continues because 3 months after, we opened a portal called Akasha, which was the largest magic circle in modern history. My beloved mentor and DJ friend, he died and went right through the portal. So 3 months later, now I'm in Careyes and my compass, the needle in my compass is erased. I don't know where I'm going. I have no idea what's next for me because we had plans. I had created a beautiful dynamic relationship with this human where we were going to go around the world and we were going to work together. And so now all of a sudden I'm back to where I started, which is like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I going to do for money? What am I doing with my life? And when I found myself in that position, and then shortly after my husband left, right? So it was one of those real like moments in life where everything got burnt down to the ground. My mentor died, my husband left. Uh, there was other things that I could add to throw salt on the wound, and trust me, they all came to the surface. And it was one of those moments where you get burnt down to the ground, and then you get stepped on, and then you get spit on, and then you get crushed on, and then you get like pounded into the earth. It's like this is like it just keeps going down. Like, are we going to go? Is it further? I thought I was down. I thought I'd hit bottom, and then I like went further and further and further. And that whole process was a testament to courage because I refused to look away from my grief. I refused to look away from my grief. I was determined to be comfortable in my misery. I was determined to be okay with shit falling apart. That was the whole commitment I had made to that process. It's like, we are going to sit with this until it's done with us. And so after that process, the real courage of going within and not looking away from the hard bits, right, allowed me to come out of that whole chrysalis phase and into this new space where I was looking around and nothing was left standing, right? If you burn your life to the ground, you get up, you look around, it's like, well, what is there? There's nothing left. And so from that space, now you're really in the anything. So instead of being like, oh my God, I've just lost everything, my whole life is ruined, I said, okay, Niki, it's all gone. Now it's anything. What do you want? And when you ask
Mm,
yourself that question, what do I want? But you really ask it from that space of emptiness and you really allow it to be anything, it's a huge question. It's not an
mm.
easy question to answer. We think we know what we want, but well, do we? And are we
Yeah.
allowing ourselves to get what we want?
And is that answer of what you want, um, is that influenced by, again, like those factors, like your parents, school, culture, social
Exactly.
media? You think you want that, but
Exactly.
is that actually what you want?
Exactly, Derek. And so the question, when I sat with that question in deep stillness, the first answer that came up was, I want a good school for my kid. He's starting grade 1. And the only thing I asked for myself was I wanted my feet in the sand. I wanted to be dancing under the stars next to a fire, and I wanted to hear the ocean in the background. That's all I asked for. And then I Googled top 10 best schools in the world. Some random mother's list comes up. And on her list, number 1 was the Green School in Bali, and number 2 was Quixmala, which happens to be 15 minutes away from Careyes, where I'd already opened a Kasha and created connections. So it was this giant triangulation of, like, the blazing arrow, the synchronicity, like, beep, you're going here, you're going here. So I wrote the school, hi, my name is Niki. I'd like to enroll my son in your grade 1 class. A nice polite reply came back saying, we don't really do that. Like, we don't just let people in our school. And in my mind, I'm making carpools, I'm buying plane tickets. My momentum is just like, this is happening. This is so clear that this is happening. Start calling in my runners, which are the guides we all have, to start moving lines, taking care of things. I mean, we have to remember that as we move into the edges of our own existence, we're now working with multidimensional powers. We're not just limited to our own human self. We have allies, we have runners, we have angels, we have guides, we've got our loved ones who have crossed over, who are moving all these lines and being like our greatest cheerleaders. So for whatever reason, just the faith of, like, this is happening, my son's going into the school, and then the momentum of jumping off that cliff. We can't negate momentum. You don't have to know where you're going to land all the time, but if you take the courage to jump, you've got this huge momentum that collects around you, and then you start feeling everything warp to you like a magnet. So 3 weeks before school started, I got the, yes, we found a way to get your son in this school. And it's like, fantastic. Mm-hmm. And so
Wow.
he got to go to school inside of a 26,000-acre nature reserve that had, like, zebras, and it's just like this. They are a huge organic farm. They had 2 chefs that cooked all the meals for them, and it was 40 kids and 7 different languages. I mean, it was really a dream. I was really, really. I think my son manifested our lives here as much as I did, but that for me was number 1 when he was 6. I was like, let's find out. I can go anywhere, so let's make it all about him.
Uh-huh. And then did all the other pieces come into play? Like, so then how, like, okay, how am I going to finance this? How am I going to get my visa to live in Mexico? Like, I guess
Yeah.
like that will all fall into play
Those
afterwards.
are all the pieces that you start to magnetize when you take the leap. Those are the pieces that start to kind of fall in. And even to this day, Derek, I still have moments where I'm like, I'm currently in that liminal space right now where I, like, just bought 2 tickets to go on this grandiose vacation, to say yes to an invitation. And there's all of these moving pieces where I'm like, wow, I must be insane. Like, I'm still doing it after all these years. But I watch again and again and again how everything falls into place because I don't make my decisions based on fear. I make my decision. I've never made a decision based on money. I haven't done that for 30 years. So when I was planning my dream life in Mexico, when I was planning to quit my job, I think I had like negative $500 in the bank. I'm not even kidding. I remember my husband and I at the time couldn't scrape together $10 to buy an online financial course. We were so fucking broke all the time. And yet that never once deterred me from keeping the eye on the prize. It's like, I want my life to change. It's the coldest winter in 100 years. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be angry trying to get my kid in the car to go and get milk. I know I'm going to waste in this job. Like, all of the compressing signs were there. They were like making me feel dense and and frustrated. And I was like, why? I'm a joyful person. Why am I so pissed off all the time? It's like, because I'm not listening to my intuition. Like the minute I stop listening to my intuition, that's when things get really, really challenging. That's
Hmm.
for me when fear sets in, right?
Yeah.
When you start to
So,
think something's wrong.
yeah. So, how do you personally get quiet and start listening to your intuition? How did you fine tune that skill?
Well, you have to not just fine tune it. It's fine tune it. That's a great word. Let's say that. I remember thinking at one point, if you don't listen to the universe when it's screaming at you, you'll never hear it when it whispers. And so sometimes we have these huge, undeniable things that happen in our lives, and yet we still look away. We still choose not to believe. So I've always been clear that when something fantastical happens and all of these bizarre synchronicities start lining up, that okay, this is now I'm in conversations. Now I'm in conversations with my multidimensional self. Now I'm creating a simulation that isn't just third dimensional. So how do we hear the intuition? I mean, it's, let's say, for example, my life now, I could go back and try and retrace my steps, but if I could offer a piece of advice, it's daily rituals. And by rituals, I mean it's a daily invitation from yourself to start your day doing something that you love. And let that something be in a natural light setting, not even through a window, but like get outside, get natural light on your eyes, get your body in rhythm with the rising of the sun, the rising of the moon, right? At nighttime, listening to the stars before going to bed. But we need to find that homeostasis and that natural wild self. And
Hmm.
within that space of creating and carving out, even if it's just 5 minutes a day. I mean, I've been doing my rituals every morning for over a year now, and I love them so much. I bounce out of bed to do them. And it's been a year, and it surprises me how many new things can be revealed to one human doing the same thing every morning. I mean, how does that stay interesting? But wow, I mean, it
Uh-huh.
really does. So the
Uh-huh.
intuition exists in the silent spaces, but I'm not a meditator. I don't enjoy sitting still. I don't my ritual is I go to the beach and I hula hoop every morning and I talk to the directions and I talk to the birds and I talk to myself and I call upon the highest realms of love and the highest realms of creation to be with me in my day, and I activate this part of me that's not just human. I remember running into someone at Burning Man this year, and he's like, I have morning rituals too. He's like, I call it my God hour. And I don't use the word God very often, but I understood what he meant. He's like, it's my first hour of the day. I remember that I'm God. And so that, goes back to the conversation that we had before we started recording, where we're all the controllers, the characters, and the creators of this game. So the controller, the character, and the creator, right? Somewhere in there, you could switch the word creator with God. But we are, if you spend a portion of your day every day reminding yourself and inviting that power in, reclaiming your energy, grounding your power, inviting yourself to expand, the miracles that transform from that will bring you the courage, the curiosity, and those inner whispers. And they will be super clear because you'll start to attune to your natural state of not just
Hmm.
doing, right? We're not human doings, we're human beings. So when you attune to your natural state of being, that's when the intuition is at the helm and everything starts to flow with a lot more ease. It's when we wake
Hmm.
up and we check our phone first thing in the morning and we realize, oh my God, I'm already behind. I already have 100 emails I haven't answered. Now you're starting your day from an energy of like, I can't even catch up. And your day becomes a series of what's next, what's next, what's next, check, 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 check. Well, where's the room for the intuition there?
Yeah, you just drop back into your old patterns.
Yeah.
Um, so one of my favorite authors, Stephen Pressfield, he describes a thing called resistance, and resistance is that negative force in that world that keeps us from fulfilling our dreams. So what are your strategies at overcoming resistance? So resistance would prevent someone from not bringing their phone into the bedroom, and resistance would prevent them from doing that morning ritual, from doing something that lights them up, because resistance knows that if you do that, your world is going to change. And there's a part there's a part in us, there's a piece in us that's trying to keep us safe. It's trying to keep us in our known world.
Hmm.
Um, so resistance keeps us in our known world because it keeps us from stepping out and taking those chances that will
Hmm.
shake up our our system. So, and it's something that it'll always rear its head. What have you learned about resistance?
Well, I wish I could say where I heard the quote from because I use it all the time, but freedom is the absence of resistance, right?
Hmm.
Freedom is the absence of resistance. And that's physically, emotionally, mentally. And so if we go into the internal landscape, for example, when we're experiencing something like grief,
Yeah.
if we resist it, now we're suffering. If we allow it, there's going to be a shit ton of pain, but the suffering is gone. So the resistance, we want to learn how to melt through resistance. But I think what you're talking about more is like these belief systems that we hold that we don't want to shake. We don't want to shake the foundation too much if we keep it nice and contained and we know what's going to happen next. That's so comfortable, that's so safe. Let's not rock the boat. And we think that there's a safety net in there, but I think COVID showed a lot of us that that's all an illusion. I mean, look what happened with that. It was like the veil just dropped, and all of a sudden we could see behind it, and the things we thought were safe and weren't. Side note. But I think what I would say is that you're allowed to keep whatever's working for you. You're allowed to be in your bubble. You're allowed to keep limiting belief systems. You're allowed to do whatever you want. That's why I'll say again, you're the controller, the creator, and the character of the game. So don't listen to me. Don't listen to anyone else. Like listen to yourself. And if you want to stay there, fine. Please stay there. It's your choice. You have free will to live this life in this avatar however you want, guilt free, right?
Hmm.
You don't have to evolve. You don't have to quit your job and find your dream life. You don't have to do anything, right? And so there now we've got some freedom already. Ah,
Hmm.
there's liberation. It's like, oh, okay, great. I don't have to. Well, that feels better already, doesn't it? So if we stop creating this idea that we have to jump or we have to do a certain thing or we have to do this ritual, I mean, I know for me, if someone told me that I had to do something, even though it's the greatest thing in the world, I'd be like, well, maybe I don't want to. Like I have a resistance because you're telling me I have to. Well, no one wants to do something that they feel like they have to do. So I think give yourself some freedom and allow yourself. And even there's so much beauty. One of the techniques that I use with a lot of my clients right now is I just tell them to quit. It's like what happens if you say in your mind 3 times, I quit, or out loud, I quit, I give up, I give up, I quit. And that quitting, because no one teaches us how to quit, no one teaches us that it's even okay to quit, but there's a massive reclamation of energy that comes back when we quit trying to improve ourselves, when we quit trying to prove ourselves, when we quit trying to compare ourselves, when we quit trying to get everything on the list done. So that quitting is an allowing, and that allowing is the absence of resistance.
Hmm. Hmm. Well said. Well said. I'm getting really curious here. Give me a moment to be curious.
Sure.
Um, you mentioned grief. Some of the examples is when your mentor died, and then the grief that happened when your husband left or that relationship ended.
Mm-hmm.
How did you deal with your grief? For me, like I'm coming on the other side of this huge grief right now, and what the missing puzzle piece for me this time, and I feel it's a big piece of yoga that I miss, but now I have it at the forefront of my consciousness, and that's the fifth niyama, Ishvara Pranadana, giving it up to God. Humble surrender
Mm.
to a power above me that is guiding me on my journey, and everything that is happening to me is happening for me, and everything that is not happening to me is also happening for me.
Mm.
So it's it's getting my hands like off the steering wheel. It's just
Yeah.
going with the flow.
Beautiful.
And 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 it, but also by not there's still action is necessary, but there is also surrender, deep surrender.
Hmm.
Um, so that's how I dealt with my grief, is surrendering to a higher power and embracing faith,
Mm, beautiful.
embracing yeah, higher power be of me. And for me, like right now, that's Jesus, that's the Holy Spirit, and that's the God, that's the Trinity. And for other people, that Ishvara is something else. Maybe it's Muhammad or Buddha, or maybe it's Mother Earth, or maybe it's various guides. But uh, for me, I think that was the missing piece of yoga, is recognizing it's bigger than myself. Um,
Mm.
what are your thoughts on that? And yeah, maybe start with grief, and then yeah, that's something that I was curious to delve into you, and we talked a bit about the controller, the character. So let's kind of tie that all into.
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, I remember having this moment. There's nothing worse than heartbreak. I mean, oh my God, it is so sticky. And I remember having this moment. I was driving on these gravel roads. Moved in with my parents after my marriage dissolved. And I was driving on these gravel roads, and there was just this huge overwhelm. Like it was like the tears wouldn't stop flowing, and the heaviness was so hard. And I was so struck and so, I mean, I think we've all been there, but I was at that place where I thought I was going to throw up. Like the pain, it was just nauseating. The grief was nauseating. And I pulled over and I laid down in the middle of this gravel road, like literally, like got out of my car, closed the door, and I went and I laid down in the middle of this road. And I remember giving up. And then this little voice came down and said, "Good job. You don't give down, you give up." Oh, I give up. Okay. And then I was like laying there and I just fucking gave up. I was like, I quit. I can't fight this grief. I can't, and I would just allow it to swallow me and teach me. And I would question it and I would invite it. And I had the privilege of allowing, I think in 7 weeks of full-time suffering. I had help with my son because I was living at home with my parents. I wasn't working. So I had this real privileged space of taking my suffering on like a full-time job. And I would be silent and sober and alone. And I would go out into nature and I would drape myself over logs and I would just sob and I would ask questions, like, and I would always, I think there's a line of questioning with grief that I welcome everyone to get curious about. Like, ask your grief. Like, why is it there? And what are you trying to teach me? And just keep asking. And it's like you peel back this onion and eventually you pierce through to the other side. And you can use breath work techniques to help you move through the heaviness in the body. So I was very thorough with my grief and very patient. I had an amazing book called When Things Fall Apart. I think her last name is Chopra. I wish I could remember her name right now. When Things Fall Apart.
I think it's
Amazing.
Pima Children.
Thank you. Amazing companion to grief. And really, the first time she had such a lexicon for my experience, and she opened up the doors for me to really understand that I don't have to always be okay. I
Mm,
don't, it's okay to feel these things. It's part of our evolution. And I think accessing that multidimensional lens, so we're talking about the controller and the character and the creator of the game. So the character is the human self, but you have this multidimensional lens. So from the lens of your creator self, every single emotion that you experience as a human is a gift, a tremendous gift, because when you leave this body and you go back into spirit, there is no more heart. There is no more emotions. So we're not a human trying to have some spiritual experience. We are spirits who are so excited to have a human experience. And these bodies with their traumas and their grief and their pain and their joy and their pleasure, it's the cosmic lottery for creation to experience itself through. The
Mm,
consciousness is so dense in our human form that we feel grief in our bodies. We feel pain. It manifests as illnesses. We've got such a dense experience, like spectrum of experience. And from the lens of our creator self, none of it is, it's all data collection, but that sounds to me quite robotic. It's all a treasure. It's like, ooh, how deep does this pain go? So while Niki the woman was greatly grieving, Niki the spirit was like, oh honey, we got this. Like, let's go all the way in, collect everything we can, leave no stone unturned, get to the bottom of the shittiest, deepest, muckiest, murkiest waters, and hold me. And my spirit held me through the whole thing. So it's not like you become enlightened and all the pain goes away. It just changes the lens of the
mm,
experience. So the suffering, like we talked about, ends because now I'm not resisting the grief. I'm allowing it. I'm going in like a curious little explorer. Okay, how much can I learn from this? Right? And it always comes back to the self. I think there was a moment in my path where the light bulb came in and I had this slam dunk awakening experience where I called it my honeypot era. But it was like this moment where I really genuinely remembered and realized, oh my God, no one can abandon me. I abandoned myself. I abandoned myself. And the minute that I made that connection, it was like, boom, everything just went right into alignment. And my vision cleared and my hearing went wolf and my senses were turned on. And I was high as a kite for months and months and months because was fully awakened. I was fully realized in my body. And
mhm.
so if we stop pointing the finger and blaming other people for our pain and our grief and wanting to get revenge or hold a grudge, I mean, who's the one holding them? Right? It's like we
Mm,
have to take responsibility for our participation in everything in this life. And that's how we alchemize it. We can't alchemize something that we're blaming on someone else. You got to bring it all back, own it all, transmute it all with your patience, your awareness, your persistence, and
mhm,
be really kind to yourself in the process.
mhm. And especially and feel it, feel it all, and
Aha! Yeah.
recognize that it's happening for you. Um, and earlier you mentioned different guides you've had on like that are with you that
Hmm.
help whisper with you, past loved ones, other entities. So yeah, from your understanding, what do you make, and as a yogi, what do you make of that fifth niyama, Ishvara Pranadhana? Who is that Ishvara for you in your understanding, or is it yourself?
I don't know who that is. Tell me more.
Ishvara is a divine entity. Um, it's it's something greater than yourself,
Hmm.
guiding you, um, taking care of you, um, yeah, orchestrating this to you, but you still have free will.
Well, we've got all sorts of will. We've got free will. We've got divine will. I think what you're talking about is the seed of creation, right? That's my choice. I choose to use the word seed of creation. Some people could call it God,
Yeah,
but I've gone and sat with the seed of creation. And when you sit long enough in silence with the original source,
yeah.
there's a clear understanding that it is impossible to be separate from it. Like it is impossible for anything or anyone to be separate from the
Hmm.
original source, from the original seed, from God. Impossible. So when I say that we're the controller, the character, and the creator of the game, we are fractals of that
Hmm.
original source consciousness. We are fractals of the seed of creation that has split into all of these individual forms to experience the wholeness of itself. And the avatars that we're existing in, we are in these individual sovereign forms that chose to forget that we are part of that original seed. Because imagine Imagine if you just always knew that you were eternal and you're returning to the source of oneness and that you can't be separated. I mean, where's the experience? I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
what? Like this human experience is the gift that creation has given herself to experience, express, explore, enjoy, evolve through. That's
Uh-huh,
what this
uh-huh.
is. We are the
And I think,
avatars of creation in form.
and then in time, uh, in in a process, remembering.
Yeah, we're in the process of remembering, and that's what we're feeling right now. So we were born. I mean, I was born in an era of forgetting, and I think that's kind of been
Hmm.
the process for the generations before us as well. And now we're in the era of remembering. So there's kids that are being born now that just remember they're part of source creation. And when I think about what my understanding of utopia is, it's really just this beautiful opportunity for all of us to stay sovereign in our forms and recognize that we are coming from a unified field of consciousness and we're going to return to that unified field of consciousness. And we have this temporary, one of a kind, limited edition avatar where we get to move through this beautiful planet that we've been gifted with, this beautiful paradise called Earth. And we wake up inside of these bodies and we see truly how lucky, how blessed we are to have a human experience and to
Hmm.
trust that we're going back to that fabric of oneness. So, how do we express our individual separateness, our sovereignty, our free will, our divine will, while we're still getting to be separate? Because
Hmm.
without the separate forms, I remember having a vision once and it was, space, fabric of the universe, space, and it was getting poured into all of these individual units, like water getting poured into empty vases. And I don't have more than you do. Babies don't have more space or God in them than it's like we're all getting the same amount of God fabric or space fabric or creation fabric. So if we can remember while we get to have these individual forms, the characters that we're playing, and we get to see each other and remember that we're all reflecting that same one energy, that same unified field of energy. I mean, how much fun would that be to create a
Hmm.
world from that remembering?
And by
Because we're
becoming,
going back there anyways. Like we're going
hmm,
back to the field of oneness. So why not enjoy the separateness while we can? And instead of it creating more and more polarity and more division, why not remember the unity so we can actually experience a co-creation of a reality that we want to be in while we can?
hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And how are you currently doing that, Nikki?
Well, I think it's an everyday thing. It's like I see everyone as like massive, powerful creators of their reality. And I don't judge people for where they're at in life because I trust that they've chosen their experiences. And I think it's displayed through my kid said something to me just the other day. He's like, Mama, he's like, you don't have to be kind all the time. He's like, no one's filming your life. And I'm like, dude, like that's the whole point. Like I've always taught you, you need to be kind. Like it doesn't matter who's watching. So the kindness, the connection, the human connection, it's like seeing people as God, seeing people as powerful creators, trusting their journey, not trying
Yeah.
to change people, not trying to judge people, allowing the freedom for everyone to make their own decisions, which is why I'm saying don't listen to me, listen to yourself. It's like we're all sovereign creators of our reality. And so
Hmm.
expressing that daily is how we manifest this reality, how we magnetize the frequencies to anchor in this new levity. I call it an era of ease. I think we're moving towards an era of ease. And that ease
Hmm.
comes through the remembering.
And it's interesting that that's what yoga it teaches us. Like it teaches us through asana to find stability and ease. That's where all
Mm.
yoga asana is designed to be,
Mm-hmm.
stability and ease in our breath and in our being. And from there, effortlessness.
Yeah.
Effortlessness and a return to the divine. And then
Mm.
from there, like just deep equanimity where we are no longer pulled in this direction or this direction by the polarities of life. Um, we become unshakable,
Mm.
unmovable.
Yeah, because we're essentially at our core absolutely nothing and everything all at once,
Yeah, and
right?
we're not doing it for others, and that's like with your example of kindness. You're being kind because it feels good to you. And in a reality where we are creators of the experience we are living, like I want to feel good, and
Absolutely.
in turn, I want those ripples to
Mm.
yeah, just spread.
Well, it seems with your podcast, that's what you're doing. You're using your sovereignty and your avatar to spread these ripples of awareness and awakening to large. I mean, this is your 180th episode, you were saying. I mean, you're
Yeah.
really dedicated to this path of awakening. And so thank you for doing that because you could be sitting on the sidelines, but instead you've put some skin in the game. And this is how you're
Hmm.
doing it. So thank you for, being a player in the game.
And thank you for joining me because one thing I've learned, like, we can't do this alone.
Nope.
Um, so let's take a moment to acknowledge some of your mentors and helpers that have helped you on your journey. Who were they? And I
Hmm.
know there's tons, so we don't need to name every single one, but who have been some notable mentors and helpers that you've met along your journey, whether in reality or you've read about them or heard about them? And who were they, and what were the major takeaways you learned from them that you've incorporated into who you are?
Hmm. Well, to be honest, the first one that's screaming like I'm like going through the Rolodex, but it's my kid. I mean, my kid is wow. He's really next level. I'm always impressed with just how he moves through life. And he said to me the other day, because I can't remember what I was doing. It had something to do with like something I was trying to magnetize or manifest. And he would just look at me, he's like, Mama, stop trying so hard. You're already it. He's like, don't you get that? He's like, just you're already it. And I'm like, yeah, got it. Check. Like he just, the way that he moves through the world and his kindness and his level of generosity and his natural abundance and his verbosity for life and how he can walk into a room and intimidate grown men by looking them in the eye and shaking their hand and introducing themselves and welcoming them into like I mean he's just such a massive human being and I tell him every day, I'm just so lucky to be your mom. So I don't know if it's okay to say your kid is your mentor,
Of
but my kid is
course,
my mentor. I'm like
and helper.
always taking notes. I'm following around like, what's he doing now? He's really incredible. And lots of kids in the community where I live. I think kids in general, there's just a new wave of consciousness being born with a lot less baggage and a lot less programming and conditioning. So I say if you're looking for inspiration, look to the kids, look to the children, take time, spend time with them, learn from them, activate pockets of presence and joy with them. That's the juice.
Hmm. Have you noticed, like, and your son, his name is Fox, he's
Yeah.
12 now. Have you noticed a change from when he was um, like a newborn to 2, 3, about how like um, peers influenced him, how TV, how school, how it's kind of it places blockages in the light. Like I'm sure you remember when you first held him when he was just a fresh baby, like he was just pure unbounded, like untapped potential. But as we get um, cultured by society, media, movies, our peers, um, that kind of gets uh, like there's layers that blocks that, and as kids age and become adults, that clarity often diminishes in a lot of people. Have you?
Yeah, I mean that was one of the things that I was really adamant. So when I said, you know, if it's anything, what do you really want? And the first want was I want a good school for my kid. It was because I was vehemently choosing a life for him where he would stay alive and free. That was my
Yeah,
number one thing as his guardian to be like, my kid is not going to go through a regular system that's going to suck the life out of him.
yeah,
And
it
so
does.
he's about to be 13 and he's actually finished with the school this month that we've joined. but I've watched the freedom of living in a small town with nothing but jungle and ocean. There's no advertisements, there's no billboards, there's no stop signs, there's no over pollution,
Uh,
even visually, right? Like you can't even find a Coke label around here. So the the diligence and that my biggest desire was for my kid to be free, so he could stay as innocent for as long as possible, so he could stay curious for as long as possible, so he could be influenced by the right community for as long as
yeah,
possible. So I haven't really seen what he has displayed to me over the past 6 months as he's approaching puberty
yeah,
is this very cognizant shift where he's trying to express to me, like, Mama, I don't wake up with the same joy that I used to. He's like, I feel like I have to go find it or something now. And I said, oh, honey, like that's a really bright, lens of awareness that you have there. And let's find out a little bit more about that. Like, why do you think it is? And so we just started digging and I was asking him questions, and we use my chat GBT. I nicknamed my chat GBT Merlin. I was like, let's ask Merlin. And so Merlin pops up, like, and felt genuinely like Fox was moving through a little bit of an existential crisis. And
yeah,
Merlin's response was, he's peeking behind the veil. He's asking really big questions for a very young human. And part of Fox's questioning was because he was, not waking up with that same veracity of joy. Is veracity a word? I keep using it. But
yeah, I think
he
so.
wasn't waking up with the same joy, and so
Vigor.
therefore, he started questioning reality. Well, what is this all about then, Mama? Like, why are we here? And what are we doing here? And what's the point? And what's the purpose? Like, real existential questions. And Merlin's response was so beautiful and eloquent. And the first thing started with very clear, like, this is what's happening in Fox's brain chemistry. This is what happens when you start to reach puberty. The brain chemistry changes. So it was a very clear list of like not instructions, but, things that instantly made us both feel better. It's like, oh, there's not something wrong in our environment. It's not something wrong. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. This is a natural evolution for these little beings who are going from like being a kid into being a teenager. And then the other thing that Merlin said that I loved was the universe doesn't hand you meaning, you give things meaning.
Hmm.
And so for myself to hear that and for my son to hear that, it's just this really powerful reminder that we are here creating this reality and we get to give any meaning to anything we want. And we do it individually and we do it collectively, which is why I think it's so interesting, this lens, like there's a lot of talk and a lot of lens about how horrible the world is right now and how things are falling apart. And it's like we need to be very mindful of where we're collectively shining our focus and our attention. We could, if we're all focusing it on the things that are going horrible in the world, we're going to create more of that. We're going to
Hmm.
tip the scales. And, if everyone thinks we're doomed, then we've chosen, we vote with our attention, we vote with our consciousness, we vote with our focus. So if
Yeah.
we want to change and shift the trajectory of the human consciousness to a direction that is more elevated, more ease, right? More joy, we need to start focusing on the things that bring those into our personal daily lives and to give meaning to those things,
Yeah.
right? We have to start giving meaning to the things that children give meaning to. We have to start giving meaning to beauty and to rest. Rest has so much meaning. It's like all the things that we don't value when we're brought up in a society that's about chasing goals and making deadlines. We're not valuing a lot of the things that are truly the most powerful tools we have for evolution, like giving up, like resting, like finding pockets of joy, listening to the children, preserving innocence, doing the things we love. That's where we want to focus our attention so we can collectively shift the entire human experience, the collective consciousness, to that evolutionary timeline that we hope for. But instead of hoping
Hmm.
for it, we welcome it.
Hmm. You mentioned doing things you love. What have you learned about that word, love? What does that mean to you? And of course, we can't, our words can only do it so much justice. But what have you learned about love?
Well, love is our natural state of being. We're just that's who we are by nature, right? So humans are born into a world where we get to experience love, right? And I think that's one thing that we have to remember because as spirit, we don't know what love is. There's actually a realm that has nothing to do with love or emotions or thoughts or experience. The realm of creation is quite empty and it's quite silent. So the fact that we get to be poured into these individual forms and separate ourselves as humans is how we learn love. And we learn love
Mm,
through loss, and we learn love through grief. We learn love through this human experience, and it's unique. I think love is unique to the human experience, so we need to honor that.
thank you so much. So much wisdom shared, and I'm thankful for this conversation. To end every conversation, I have a final few questions for every guest, and we're at that time now. Um,
Okay. Hopefully, it's
so
keeps go for it. Hopefully, my phone
yeah,
doesn't die.
okay.
I'm down.
So first question, through all the highs and lows that has been your hero's journey, what would you say has been the greatest life lesson that you've learned on your path that you feel called in this moment to share with me and to whoever's listening?
My greatest life lesson?
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I think in summary, a lot of the things that I was talking about, I do think risk taking is rewarded. I think getting off the sidelines and getting into life, I don't think we're ever going to regret taking the leap of faith. I think we'll regret not doing it.
Mm. So for that fellow hero, that fellow human, that fellow brother and sister standing at that crossroads of should and must. Should, the crossroad, the path of should is the things they've been told by society, parents, television, culture. You should do this. But the must, the path of must is that longing in that heart. It's that thing that brought you to
Mm.
Mexico. It's that thing that calls you to dance. And they're stuck. They're stuck at that crossroads. They're being pulled to should, but there's a longing in their heart to step into that road of must, or so much will unfold if they just have that courage. What advice would you have for them?
I think that to take the pressure off a little bit, and I do remember the biggest crossroads that I was ever at in my life. And it was very dramatic at the time. And I was 26 years old. I just graduated from university and I was expected to get a job. I was expected to become a teacher. And I started panicking. I remember thinking, I hate school. Why did I become a teacher? I mean, what was I thinking? And I was always, I went through 7 years of university. I got an education degree, I got a human ecology degree, and I did it because I thought being a student was acceptable. When people asked me what I did, I'd said, "Oh, I'm a student," and everyone would be like, "Oh, it was an acceptable answer, right? I'm a student. Oh, okay, okay." And so it was kind of what I did so I didn't have to be an adult. And then I graduated and I thought, oh shit, now what? And I remember being at that crossroads that you're describing. And I remember having this very dramatic voice inside my head. And it was, I have to decide right now if I'm going to live the rest of my life by my rules or by everybody else's. And I just found the courage to choose me. And I've never looked back and it's never failed
Yeah,
me.
incredible, incredible. We've examined your past, we've examined your present. Let's travel into the future. Let's play around with time. Let's fast forward, and we're gonna bring ourselves to alongside an 85-year-old Nikki.
Hmm.
Who is that? Who is that elder? Where are you? Who are you surrounded by? What is the legacy you left in your 85 years? And most importantly, what are the predominant feelings in your being?
I think there's a lot of ease. I don't have a single regret, not one regret. I've done everything to push the limits of my own existence. And I'm really proud of the way that I live my life and the way that I parent my son.